Hello everyone, welcome to the Amazon Web Services tutorial. So this tutorial basically consists of two parts. The first part is to set up a Windows instance using Amazon Web Services, and the second part is to set up a database instance using the Amazon Web Services. So in this video we'll be first discussing Windows instance setting up using Amazon Web Services. So I'm assuming that everybody has created an AWS account, and for logging in we have to put our registered email address or mobile number here in this text box, and then the password in the second option, that is I am a returning user and my password is. Now we'll just log in. So this is basically the Amazon Web Services console, the dashboard. So you can see here that there are certain tabs like recently visited services and all services. All services has all the services that the AWS provide us with. Then there is this recently visited services which have IAM, EC2 and RDS, which are basically the services that I had accessed the last time I logged in. Now to set up a Windows instance using AWS, there are certain prerequisite steps that need to be followed. So let's check the to-do list. So the first thing is to create a group. Then we have to create a user. Then a key pair needs to be created. After that we'll be creating a security group. Then we'll be create an instance. Then once the instance is created, we'll be connecting to the instance, and once we are done working with the instance, we'll be terminating the instance. So let's start with the first step, that is creation of group. So for that we'll be clicking onto IAM, that is Identity and Access Management. So it basically securely controls the access to the AWS services and the resources for the IAM users that we'll be creating later. So first we have to create the groups, so we'll click on groups, and here we'll click on create new group. We'll provide the name as admin. Next. Now these are the policy types, and there are filters, and we can choose different policy types. As you can see, we have different options. So for this first part we'll be using administrator access. So this is the review, group name admin, and the policies is administrator access. We can just review it and click on create group. Now as you can see, the group is being created. Now you can observe here that this group has 0 users, whereas admin group and admin new have 1 and 2 users respectively, because I had created them earlier. So since first step is done, we'll just clear it off from our to-do list. Now the second step is to create the user. So for that we'll click on users, and by clicking on users we'll click on add users, and here we'll provide the name. So the name is here DIS Windows users. Now we can add multiple users as well by clicking on add another user. Now to proceed further, we have to choose the AWS access type, and we are provided with two options. The first one is programmatic access, which enables the access ID and secret access key for AWS APIs, CLI and SDKs. And the other option is AWS management console access, that is using the user through the AWS console only. So we'll be choosing this. After that we'll be clicking on custom password, and here we'll provide the password. Do remember this password, it can be used once you will be using your user. Click on next. Now here you can see it is asking to which group shall we add this user to. So since we had created the admin group recently, so we'll be clicking on the checkbox against admin and click on next. Now we can review the user summary that we have created. Username is DIS Windows user, access type is console access with a password. Then you can see the group is admin, and the manage policies I am user change password. Now we can just click on create user, and it says that the user has been created. Now we'll just click on close. Now you can see the admin group has 1 user here. and since we had provided the password to our DIS Windows user, the password has already been checked. So now we'll just cross this step as well. Now our next step in our to-do list is to create a key pair. Now to create a key pair, we'll have to log in to the AWS EC2 services dashboard. So we'll click on EC2 here. So here you can see the EC2 dashboard. The whole navigation pane has been provided. Now we'll be scrolling down to network and security, and here we have the key pairs option. So we'll click on key pairs. Now this is a previously created key pair by me. So but for this video we'll be creating a new key pair so that everyone is aware how to do so. Now we'll provide the key pair name. Create. Now you can see that it has been created. Now there is this file that we have to save, which is windows underscore access underscore key.pem. We have to save it, and we have to remember the location as well, and I'll be explaining it to you where we'll be using it. So our key pair is now created. We'll just scratch it off. Now our next step in the to-do list is to create a security group. So for that, under the network and security option, we'll be choosing security groups. Now you can see there are few groups by default and few groups I had created earlier. Now to create a new group, we'll be clicking on create security group. Now we'll provide the name. And not to forget, we have to provide a description, because if we won't provide it, it will throw an error and we won't be able to create a security group. Now this is the VPC. The VPC is already been chosen as default value here. Now the important thing here is to choose the inbound rules. So for that, we'll have to click on the add rule button. So the first rule that we'll be choosing is HTTP. Now the protocol here by default is TCP and the port range is 80. The source, we'll be changing it to anywhere. The next rule that we'll be choosing is HTTPS. Here it is. The protocol here is TCP, the port range by default is 443, and the source will be again changing it to anywhere. Then the third rule that we'll be choosing is RDP, and the port range is 3389. So we have the option of choosing a my IP here, but the problem is that one might face firewall issues due to the firewall settings in your computer. So it might not allow you to access the Windows instance, that is a remote Windows that we'll be creating. So to be on the safer side, we'll be choosing anywhere here, and then we'll just click on create. So as you can see, our Windows group, security group, has been created here. So now we'll just scratch this step as well from our to-do list. Now the next step is to create the instance. So for that, we'll be going to instances tab, and from that we'll be choosing instances. As you can see, currently there are no instances here, so we'll be clicking on launch instance. So you get a lot of Amazon machine images here that AWS provides you with. So you can see there are Linux images, Red Hat images, SUSE Linux images, Ubuntu images, but since we are creating a Windows instance, we'll be choosing Microsoft Windows Server 2016 base. It also comes in a free tier, and hence we are choosing it. Select. So you can see it is already been pre-selected, the family, that is general purpose, the type is T2 micro, which is again a free tier eligible. The virtual CPUs you can see is provided as 1, the memory is 1 gigabyte, then instant storage is EBS only, then there are other parameters that we can review. IPv6 support, yes. Network performance is low to moderate. Now these are the other options that we could have chosen, but we are going for the default value, which is general purpose and T2 micro. So since we have reviewed, we'll just review and launch. Now once we click, we can see here it is that improve your instance's security. Your security group launch wizard 1 is open to the world. So as you remember, we have created a security group, right? So this is the default launch underscore wizard 1 that has been assigned to our instance. So we don't want that. So we can edit the security groups by clicking here. Then we can click on select existing security group, and from that we'll be choosing this Windows security group that we had recently created, and we can review all the options. We had provided HTTP and RDP, and now we'll just click on review. Since we have reviewed, now we'll launch it. Launch. So now it's asking for the key pairs. So the latest key pair that we had created was Windows access key. So we'll be choosing Windows access key here, and we'll click on this checkbox that I acknowledge that I have access to the selected private key file, Windows access key.pem, and that without this file I won't be able to log into my instance. So let's just launch instance. So as you can see, it's providing a status as your instances are now launching. We can check the launch log. So you can see initialize launches. It is a successful instance launch here, and the launch initiation is completed. So we can just view our instance. Yes, you can see that here the instance is currently in a pending state, and there are certain status checks which will be initialized soon. So it will take around 5 to 7 minutes to basically come in. So it came to running state, and the status checks are yet being initialized. So you can see that now the instance is running and all the checks have been completed. So you can check, actually go through what type of checks was it going through. So the first check was the system status check. These checks monitor the AWS systems required to use this instance and ensure they are functioning properly. And the second check is the instance status check that basically monitors our software and the network configuration for this instance. So this instance passed both of them. So our instance is created. So we'll just scratch it off from our to-do list. Now our next step is to connect to the instance. So we'll click on connect. Now here you see it's asking for get password in this pop-up. So you remember I told you to remember the location where your file of key pair password was getting downloaded to. So it was basically required for this purpose. So once we click on get password here, we'll browse, and Windows Access PEM, this is the file that belongs to our key pair. It is a .pem extension file. We'll click on open. We'll click on decrypt password here, and the password is decrypted. So the important step is to copy this password because it will be required. So we'll just copy it in a notepad. Now we'll click on download remote desktop file. The file is downloaded. You click on open, connect. Now it's asking for the password. Now the password that we had copied, the decrypted password, we'll just select it all and paste it. So you can view the certificate here. This is like issued to and issued by, and the validation dates, that is from 26/1 till 28/7 2017. Click on OK, click on yes here. Now basically we are logging into our Windows instance. So we are finally connected to our Windows instance. So let's just go to to-do list and scratch off connect to the instance. Now the last step is terminate instance. So basically once you are done using the instance for whatever purpose you were wanting it to use for, you have to terminate your instance, that is close the instance. So for that you have to select the instance. Since we have only one instance here, so it is by default selected, and then we'll go into actions, we go into instance state, and at the end it is terminate. So it will be a dialog box will be asking you, are you sure you want to terminate the instance? Then you'll just click on yes, terminate. So as you can see, the instance state is now shutting down. So basically this was the first step, that is how to create the Windows instance using Amazon Web Services. Now we'll be discussing the second part, that is the setting up of database instance using the Amazon Web Services, in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.